Okay, so thank you very much, and sorry for the delay about the technical problem. So today I'm going to talk about the pollen and how it could be useful to reconstruct environment and climate and their comparison with human occupation. During the early Middle Pleistocene period, the number of archaeological sites in Europe increases. However, when we look at the map showing the distribution of the archaeological sites since the marine isotopic stages 19 in Black Star, we saw that a notable absence of human occupation, in southern Spain from Miss 14 to 12. In addition, the Pleistocene is also characterized by alternating glacial and interglacial periods. Here, environmental and climatic changes associated with these cycles may have influenced the human settlements and in particular during the Miss 14 and Miss 12. And one of hypotheses in archaeology is that climatic and environmental changes could have affected the change in the human adaptation. So it's why the aim of this study is therefore to address two main questions: whether the environmental and climate changes in southern Europe during Miss 14 to 12, and could they have affected the human settlements in the region? We studied the marine sediment core, ODP 976, in the Alboran Sea at the east of the Strait of Gibraltar. Pollen analysis was performed with more than 100 samples analyzed, and for each sample, at least 300 pollen grains were counted to reconstruct the environment and climate of southern Spain and northern Africa. During Miss 14 and to Miss 12. In addition, using the pollen data, we reconstruct quantitative climate parameters. The approach is based on calibrating the fossil pollen assemblages against modern pollen assemblages extracted from datasets, for which current climate values are known. We applied 5 different reconstruction methods. 3 methods are based on ecological concepts, and the last 2 methods relied on machine learning approaches based on trees regressions. And together, these 5 methods provide estimate values for annual and seasonal temperature and precipitation. So here you can see the restricted temperature and precipitation obtained from the 5 methods. So what can you see? It is that during Miss 14, the climate was relatively cool, with an average of 13 degrees, and was also relatively dry, with reduced precipitation. The Miss 13 show 2 warmer phases separated by a cooler and drier events. And finally, during the Miss 12, we observe a progressive decrease in the temperature and precipitation, with an average temperature of 11 degrees, and the precipitation were less than 500 millimeters per year, indicating extreme cold and dry climates. And this result suggests that among these three periods, the Miss 12 represents a particularly severe glacial. So this slide compare our new pollen data here with other Mediterranean pollen records from southern Iberia, Italy, Macedonia, and Greece. And across all region, the interglacial Miss 13 here at the center and highlighted in pink is characterized by the expansion of temperate forests. However, in Italian site here, as well in Macedonia, the interglacial is also marked by high percentage of mountain trees. And this difference between the mountain and temperate forest amplitude during the different sites is likely reflecting the higher altitude among the studied sites. In contrast, both glacial periods here in white are dominated by open herbaceous vegetation and steppe landscape across all of the region. The Miss 12 here appear more steppe than the Miss 14 in several regions. Yes, so yes, okay. So some preliminary results about the comparison with the archaeological sites and occupation. So we have three maps who show the distribution of the archaeological sites during the Miss 14, 13, and 12, alongside the distribution of the different environmental archives in Western Europe. And for each isotopic stage, we can see there is no clear distinction in the type of the site. But what you can observe for the moment is that during Miss 14, the archaeological site has relatively scarce and mainly located in southern and northern France and in southern Italy. During the Miss 13, the number of sites significantly increased. The occupation are documented in southern England, in Italy, in the Balkans, and in northern Morocco. And during the Miss 12, the number of sites, in contrast, decreases. They are mainly found in northern Spain, in France, and southern England, which show fewer occupations than the interglacial, and other sites in Miss 12 are also located at the east, for example, in Italy, in Ukraine, and in the Balkans. And what about southern Spain? Southern Spain remained unoccupied during the three periods. And regardless of whether the landscape were open or forested, and this suggests that the environmental condition could not explain in totality the absence of the human occupation in this region. And to conclude, this study shows that the vegetation changes differed between the interglacial and glacial periods. Even between the two glacials, the MIS-12 show a stronger expansion of open steppe and herbaceous vegetation. The climate reconstruction indicates that the MIS-12 was colder and drier compared to the MIS-12, MIS-14 and 13. The ongoing comparison does not support a direct link between a climatic condition and the absence of human occupation in southwestern France. And the next step of this work will include to investigating the mechanism driving the vegetation responses, particularly the different amplitude between the two glacial periods, and also to try to refine the ecological chronology using, for example, Bayesian modeling approach to reduce the chronological uncertainty when, for example, when we have several edges for stratigraphic units in the same site. So thank you for your attention.